Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Yom Haatzmaut. The state of Israel is nothing short of a modern-day miracle.
Israel turns 74 years young and thousands of years old.
We now welcome to the stage the Chief Rabbi of South Africa, Dr. Rabbi Goldstein.
There's a remarkable story, and I want to take you back to the day that Israel was born. On the 14th of May, 1948, came across a story which was told by someone who was on the battlefield on that day. Ambassador Yehuda Avner, of blessed memory, writes in his book, The Prime Ministers, and he tells of what happened on that day. And do you know that 14th of May, 1948, was actually a Friday? And Yehuda Avner describes in his book how he was part of a small group of soldiers who had between them 21 obsolete rifles, as he describes it. They were in the Judean hills, and they were nearby Ein Karem, and they had heard about the infiltration of Iraqi forces and a Jordanian brigade that had come into the area. And they were wondering, how are they going to win this war? And it shows, just to go back to that moment of the day that the state of Israel was born, what an incredible miracle it was. And what I found so moving, and in a sense eye-opening, is they had no communication. We live in a world where our communication is so instant. But they knew that David Ben-Gurion was in Tel Aviv on that Friday. They didn't know whether he had declared officially the establishment of the State of Israel, because there was a debate at the time, because everybody knew as soon as they declared and acted upon the United Nations resolution, as soon as they declared a Jewish state, they would be invaded by the Arab armies. And so there was actually a debate. Were they going to declare the state or weren't they? And Avner describes how there was this small group of Jewish soldiers in the Judean hills on a Friday afternoon. The sun was setting, Shabbat was about to begin, and they had no news about what had happened. Had David Ben-Gurion declared the state of Israel? They were debating. And if he did, what name were they going to call it? They didn't even know what the name was going to be. Some wanted to say the name should be Judea. Others said it should be Israel. There was a whole discussion. And then the sun set, Shabbat began, and as soon as Shabbat began, a messenger got to them. One of their friends, who was also a soldier, Leopold Machler, arrived, and he was there with Avner and the others. And Avner describes this remarkable scene where he comes and he tells them that the Union Jacks are coming down right across the state of Israel, and that the land of Israel, and that in fact he had got a message that David Ben-Gurion on that Friday afternoon in Tel Aviv had declared to the world the establishment of the state of Israel in the land of Israel, and that the legal moment of the birth of the state was going to be midnight on Friday, the 14th of May, 1948. And so they were only hours away from the official birth of the state of Israel. And Yehuda Avner describes in his book the incredible outpouring of excitement, of fear. He describes how someone on the battlefield said, "What have we done?" They were terrified because the Arab armies were beginning to invade. They knew of the Iraqis and the Jordanians in the areas. And what were they? 600,000 Jews, hardly an army together, many Holocaust survivors. What chance did they stand? And then Avner describes the most remarkable moment there as they were all gathered and they realized it's Shabbat. And then somebody amongst their group makes the Kiddush prayer on the Friday night on the battlefield in the Judean hills after they've just heard about the birth of the state of Israel, which is going to take place in a few hours. And it was a tremendous moment for them, a moving spiritual moment of saying the Kiddush on the battlefields. And I think that it is so significant and so powerful if we consider the fact that the state of Israel was born on Shabbat, on Friday night at midnight, on the 14th of May, 1948, the state of Israel was born. It was born on Shabbat because Shabbat is, as the Midrash describes, the Ben Zug, the partner of Am Yisrael, of the Jewish people. It was born on Shabbat because the state of Israel is like no other country on earth. We as Am Yisrael, as the Jewish people, are like no other nation on earth. And it is that moment of miracles when you consider the fact that this was a small group and this army that really didn't have the wherewithal, and yet it came together with the miracles of Hashem to bless their bravery and their courage. And so the state of Israel was born in a certain sense, in a supernatural way, above the laws of this world, above the laws of nature. The survival of the Jewish people is the story of miracles, of Hashem's guiding hand throughout our history, bringing us back to our land, to the land of Israel promised to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And so the state of Israel was born on Shabbat because it is connected to Kedusha, to sanctity, to a destiny which is greater than the politics of this world, which is greater than the ordinary events which take place in this world. It exists for a higher purpose. And so as we celebrate Yom Haatzmaut together as a community tonight, we do that with gratitude to Hashem. We do that with a sense of saying to Hashem, Baruch She'echiyanu v'kiyumanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. We do that with a sense of recognition that our mission is Am Yisrael, and that the mission of Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, is a mission which comes to us from Hashem. We give thanks for that, we celebrate it, and we are indeed inspired by it. So Yom Haatzmaut Sameach, let us go forward together to celebrate these great miracles and go forward with inspiration and with confidence in the blessings of Hashem. Yom Haatzmaut Sameach. God bless you and thank you.